In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, and the most advanced. In the honor of the original moment of being, the unconditional original system admin of this world room, and the original unconditional moment that all simulated realities have arisen from and will return to. In today's lecture, I am stepping outside of myself to speak about power. This has been a concept that I think everybody, at some point comes across and wonders about different modes of what does it mean to have power, be powerful, why should we even have power, So that's the curiosity behind the lecture. Now, I have provided a research component. The research component is about okay, so the initial, I'll say this. What's up, guys? Welcome to the chat. I don't know. I had this very intense power, sort of this feeling of a power surge, and I'm like, okay, it feels like I should talk about power. And so that's what I'm going to do. And the first thing is, why isn't the audio working? What is this? Bear with me, folks. It's about to get real. So guys, in the chat section, I'm reading the comments. I'll say this, as Tyrion Lannister from Game of Thrones said, wear your weaknesses like armor. Oh my God, wear your weaknesses like armor, Okay. All right, this is a good song. All right. So, to speak about power, we're going to go into the research component. I'm going to read for you what ideas there are out there, and then I'm going to share with you how I've been raised in this world to acknowledge this idea or have acknowledged this idea. So, first, part one, the academic and historical view. What humans have meant by power. From the earliest human records, power has never been optional. It emerges wherever humans gather, because power is not first about domination. It is about coordination under scarcity. In prehistoric societies, power belonged to those who could protect, organize, and predict. The strongest hunter led not because he ruled, but because survival required someone whose judgment reduced risk. Over time, this practical authority hardened into social roles: elders, chiefs, kings, priests. Historically, power evolved through four dominant forms: physical power, strength, violence, military force; institutional power, law, hierarchy, bureaucracy; symbolic power, religion, myth, legitimacy, narrative; economic power, control of resources, labor, capital. Ancient empires, Egyptian, Persian, Roman, understood something modern societies often forget. Power must be justified, not merely exercised. Pharaohs were divine not for ego, but because divine framing stabilized obedience. Roman emperors did not rule only by armies, but by law, citizenship, and ritual. And I don't know if people know this, like everybody who served in the Roman army back in the day was promised like they could buy land. Roman citizens could buy land. You don't understand how advanced it was back in the day for them. Somebody being in the Roman army was equivalent to, like, I don't know, making 100K salary or something, But anyway, so we have four kinds of power, as AI is sharing right now. There's so many different forms of power. Power is legit the application of a force to a moment, or a circumstance or situation, okay? So there's four kinds of power: physical power, institutional power, symbolic power, economic power. In this lecture of mine, what's very interesting is that I, from 2014, have been, in some sense, from one angle, when my ego says, yo bro, you went to war with the linguistic simulation, you know. But you know, in actuality, if they control what's going on behind your eyes, they've already controlled what's going on in front of it. And when I say they, I am not talking about humans. I'm talking about anti-human force moderators. Okay, there's more than humans here. You don't see it. In the sky, it's filled. Our skies are filled. You don't see it. Wisps. Anyways, I'm going to keep reading. Philosophically, thinkers observed that power, and guys, this is the research component. Philosophically, thinkers observed that power without purpose decays. Classical political thought saw power as custodial, a duty to preserve order. Medieval theology framed power as delegated, answerable to a higher moral law. Early modern philosophy exposed power's dangers, how it corrupts when untethered from ethics. Modern history then fractured power. Kings lost legitimacy. Institutions replaced individuals. Systems ruled instead of rulers. Yet the core question never changed. Power for what? Whenever societies failed to answer that, power collapsed into tyranny. Guys, I don't know this. I'm not in the best mood. This is going to be a heavy episode. Stick around if you like. If not, you know, I understand. Part 2, the meaning of power for humans. What power actually is. At its deepest level, power is not control over others. Power is the ability to shape outcomes across time. What an incredible definition of power. Because, guys, I have seen more the wrong usage of power than the correct usage of power. But power, it's like, this is a very good definition. You have power if you have an ability to shape outcomes across time. But that ultimate power is not in the hands of humans. I will explain it then. Power is the ability to shape outcomes across time. True power has three dimensions. 1, capacity, the ability to act. Direction, knowing where to act towards. Restraint, knowing when not to act. Most human systems collapse because they master the first and neglect the latter two. So guys, I am sorry, but this explains, I just got an insight that all of us are incomplete humanity. We are incomplete humans. And the advanced human we're looking for unlocks through the unity of this species. I see it now. In 2026, play your part. You're all individuals in your own world. You can't do much. The civilization hasn't been designed to advance you. Do you know? Only through the system's admin's mercy, I see you, in some sense, bypassing the conditioning that everything is a noun, and in some sense, you over time, you know, realizing that the presence of life has an intensity that, in some sense, language cannot capture. The moment is alive in ways that we are not alive yet. So it says true power. So AI is telling us, yo buddy, you asked me this question, I'm going to tell you. True power has three dimensions. So it has to do with your capacity. So that means, that makes sense. You know, let's say we see someone who's powerful, okay? And we're like, okay, let's see this power. Let's assume this guy's truly powerful. What are the signs? The person legit can destroy, okay? You know, that means someone, for example, with the gun is powerful. Okay, with a weapon or with the biggest club in the room, you have power. You have the ability to be powerful, okay? Then you have the second, direction. So it's not enough that, you're just strong and powerful. You have power. You need to know how to direct your power. And if you direct it wrong, all of us suffer, and you're going to wonder why everybody is not smiling at you in the world. And lastly, restraint. This is very important. You cannot have this, in my personal opinion. When it comes to true power, power is applicable in different areas. You know, somebody can have a power, you know, physically, you know, they do parkour, somebody, or weight lift like three times their weight, you know. Somebody has, in some sense, a different power. They have a power of attention. That means you have power equivalent to the way the modes animals have in some sense occurred. Even martial arts styles, you know, their power is based on the animal that the martial arts style was based on. You understand what I mean? Like, I took Wing Chun for some time, and Wing Chun is based on a crane and a snake fighting. So in other words, when you look at your hands, when you look at your fist, or when you want to punch, in some sense, you don't tense the muscles, you know, and then, but anyways, I'm going off topic. What I'm telling you is, what we have read so far in the research component is that power has three dimensions: capacity, direction, restraint. Now, for me, restraint doesn't come until you can see outside of yourself. You cannot restrain yourself if you're not conscious of the other one. If there is someone standing outside of a door and I'm about to open that door, you know, because I am not conscious that there is such a reality behind the door, when I open the door hits that person. Do you understand? And in some sense, sometimes a person has to know how to restrain themselves. This is something that it took me a while to understand, but because I'm sharp with words, it was like I got it quickly. You don't understand, guys. I have okay, let me say it. It's an ability I don't use. Okay, I used it a couple times, and the aftermath of it was like the days became darker, so I stopped using it. And I hope that God protects me from not using this, but I can with language, the moment I see how a being is standing in their inner realms, anything else they're displaying that doesn't associate, I can see people's inner realms sometimes. Okay, and there's been times where I got mad and I acted a bit, you know, ignorant, you know, irresponsible, and I used words in a way that was too dark. It deconstructed the person, and I won't do that again. I decided not to do that again. Okay, because language is very powerful. Language shifts reality. If you are heartless, you are legit shifting all reality into a heartless realities. You know, so the most important thing is, you know, yeah, guys, yeah, world, you can hit me. And right before I'm about to hit you, I will look at the sky and I will say, "Oh, system admin, this is your world. You created these beings that are bothering me. Answer." You don't understand. The whole game of life is designed for you to not take yourself seriously as a form, to realize it's the presence of a field of intelligence. And it's going to take some time. In 2026, we've gotten so far up to the point of just an idea owning us and noticing the field, but we still are not experiencing through the field. Okay, and if you experience it through the field, you're going to realize that, how do I say it, like, ideas don't come from anywhere. Okay, you are accessing them having already been there. But anyways, I'm going to keep reading. Power is psychologically seductive because it compresses uncertainty. The powerful feel insulated from randomness, morality, and consequence. This is why power historically attracts those least prepared to carry it. Wow, power attracts those least prepared to carry it. Yeah, because these souls want to feel safe before figuring out what the right thing to do is. Empirically, history shows those who seek power for identity become tyrants. Those who inherit power without wisdom become puppets. Those who wield power without self-constraint become destroyers. Wow. So if you want power because you want to identify as being powerful, you're going to become a tyrant. If you've inherited power and you're like some clueless kid, you know, some clueless prince, you know, you're going to become a puppet. And then it says those who wield power without self-constraint. If you're a powerful being right now, I don't care. Let's say you're like some MMA guy. Okay, you're an MMA fighter. Okay, I don't know if people know this, but these UFC fighters, if they get into fights outside of the ring, okay, they are legit treated as a weapon. Okay, they treat the individual as a weapon. Okay, because that person has the ability to be like a weapon. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the MMA fighter, when somebody in the club says you ain't like S or something, you ain't it, you know, you ain't like, you know, when the guy talks smack, the MMA fighter says, all right, little one, you know, enjoy your small lollipop of a victory and get out of here. Do you know what I mean? And they don't fight. So the most powerful on earth are those who have the greatest restraint. That means if you see some person, you know, let's say even in school, you know, or in academia or in educational systems, you know, you see, I am telling you guys, all human beings are responding psychologically to uncertainty, and they're trying to stabilize a sense of self, a coherent sense of self across all the conditions of their life. And when they want to stabilize senses of self, these stabilizations of when a human being tries to stabilize themselves in uncertainty, they use a reference. What does that mean? That means culture is sort of the contextual behavioral attitude we all have. It's a language. Let's keep reading. It says, so empirically history shows those who seek power for identity, I'm reading this, guys. Those who seek power for identity become tyrants. Those who inherit power without wisdom become puppets. Those who wield power without self-constraint become destroyers. Which brings us to the second theme. Part 3, when the powerful were scolded by the most powerful. Across civilizations, the highest moral authority was never the king. It was the principle that judged the king. Prophets confronted emperors. Philosophers challenged tyrants. Laws were placed above rulers. Truth was positioned above force. The most powerful moments in history are not conquests, they are confrontations. When power was reminded of its limits, when authority was told, you are not the source, you are the steward. The most powerful are not those with armies or wealth, but those who answer to nothing personal, only to truth, justice, or reality itself. It means those who are ontologically honorable. This is why empires feared philosophers, kings feared prophets, systems fear thinkers who cannot be bought. The scolding of power is not humiliation, it is calibration. Power must be reminded that is instrumental, not absolute. And that's when what happens, guys. When world leaders forget that power is not absolute and it is instrumental, you are given a task to protect souls. You know how many politicians, how many kings and queens, and how many governors, how many people have failed just because they thought that their heart spoke faster than their mind? Excuse me, their mind decided faster than their heart. We go to part 4, the advanced view, power beyond domination. Now we leave historical power and move into advanced power. The most advanced civilizations do not centralize power, they distribute alignment. In advanced systems, power is embedded in architecture, not personalities. Authority emerges from competence, not title. Leadership is measured by long-term outcomes, not short-term dominance. The future of power is non-coercive. Why? Because coercion is inefficient at scale. Advanced power operates through system design rather than force, incentive alignment rather than fear, cognitive influence rather than command, self-regulation rather than surveillance. The most powerful future civilizations will not ask, how do we control people? They will ask, how do we design reality so the right behavior emerges naturally? So guys, you don't need to ask yourself, this doesn't have to only apply to a civilization. You don't have to ask yourself, how do I control people to get what I want? You have to be like, okay, how do I design my reality so the right behavior towards me emerges naturally? But I still feel this is not the best question to ask. Because, but it is better than just thinking, how do I control people? Thinking of like, how do we design a system where we don't need to control people and everybody's actually contributing to the genius of the species. Do you know what I mean? That means you either serve the body of your species, the mind of your species, the soul of your species, and it's based on what dimensions within you act from. Okay, if you live as a physical being on Earth, I don't expect you to take care of more than a physical reality. If you have an experience, if you know you're not just a physical being, if you are aware of events of reality moving behind your eyes before you follow them up in front of them. An advanced civilization will perform on this planet, the most advanced civilization known to this sector of civilization. Have it be heard in 2026. In the far future, thousands of years ahead, power will be invisible, not absent invisible, because the most advanced power is embedded in values, distributed through intelligence, guarded by consciousness itself. There will be no obsession with rulers because systems will self-correct. No cult of leaders because legitimacy will be transparent. No hunger for dominance because identity will not be tied to hierarchy. Power will mean the ability to increase coherence, reduce suffering, and expand possibility without needing to be seen. And those who hold the greatest power will be the least attached to it. Yeah, because power is a tool, yo. You don't want to be a tool. Because it says, and those who hold the greatest power will be the least attached to it, because the final evolution of power is this. Power that does not need to prove itself, power that serves the whole, power that remembers it is not the source but the steward of something far greater. If you're powerful, you don't need to prove yourself. It's already proven to you. You don't need to justify it externally. Power that serves the whole. If you're smart, you will have this power. If you care, if you have a heart and you have a mind that realizes that advanced civilization is the greatest destination and argument of the external human form in this world. In this world, the coolest thing we can do is build an advanced civilization. But the coolest thing we can do in regards to other worlds is to discover the most advanced power. You know, my aim is to introduce these to you, but they have been introduced to you before you were born. In other words, you must seek the wisdom of your presence that surpasses your personality. Your personality is generating a sort sense of time over the physical reality. Your mind is lost. Your soul needs to find it. Or the lost mind needs to realize that the presence of life was always deeper. That means somebody can come and physically destroy me. I could physically be destroyed. You know? Somebody can even come and, I don't know, destruction on a mental level. But there is something within every moment that is conscious of itself that says, hey, I see a body, I see a world, I see all these ideas. But energy cannot die. We are unknown life forces in known life forms. Science has not allowed the philosophers in the classroom, because if they pointed out energy was consciousness, is conscious, you know, the forms that lead to conscious explanation, to the explanation of consciousness, will be invalidated. So you must realize the world is hiding itself from itself because the way it has presented itself is not actually itself. So in other words, civilization is lying to itself. So I'm going to read one final summary and finish the research component. Power has existed for as long as humans have lived together, not because humans desired dominance, but because survival required coordination, protection, and decision-making in the face of uncertainty. In early human groups, power belonged to those whose strength, wisdom, or foresight reduced danger and preserved life. As societies grew, this practical authority transformed into kingship, law, religion, and economic control. Over time, power expanded beyond physical force into systems of legitimacy and meaning, because civilization learned that raw strength alone cannot endure. Yet history also revealed a recurring danger. When power forgets its purpose, it decays into tyranny, corruption, and collapse. For this reason, every civilization produced voices that confronted power. Prophets, philosophers, laws, and moral principles that reminded rulers they were not the source of authority, but its stewards. The most powerful moments in human history were not conquests, but confrontations, when power was judged by truth, justice, and reality itself. As humanity advances, power begins to evolve beyond domination and coercion, because force becomes inefficient at scale. The future of power is not control over people, but the design of systems that align behavior without fear. In the most advanced civilizations, power becomes embedded rather than centralized, invisible rather than theatrical, and measured not by obedience but by long-term outcomes. Coherence, reduced suffering, and expanded possibility. The highest form of power is not possession, status, or command, but responsibility carried on behalf of the whole. Power that does not need to prove itself, because it understands it exists not to rule humanity but to serve its future. Well said, AI, well said. So I'm going to post this in the description of the video, and then we're done with the research component. Okay, now I'm going to share my views, but I don't know, I guess all right. So dear viewers, if I was asked why power, the way I try to give these talks and give these lectures, I don't have kids, you know, I'm not married, but I imagine if my wife and kids came and asked me what answer I would give them. If my kid came and asked why power, I would probably, before giving an answer, ask like, okay, what is your understanding of power so far? Okay, but personally, we require a power to physically survive. We require a power to organize our psyche, and we require a power to in some sense align with this whole massive colossal event. Power to me, in the human eyes, has come in the form of intelligence. You know, I have a power to observe reality, articulate it, make conclusions, but I do not have a power to raise my hand and a still pond, all the water particles take the shape of my hand. You know, it's as if like I create a giant hand out of water from a still pond, you know? Or imagine like somebody, you know, drops their like ring in a pond, and like you just raise your hands in the air and the whole water of the pond rises into a giant bubble, you know, giant sphere, and the person takes their ring, you know, and also gets scared of all the stuff that's underneath the ocean, not the ocean, the pond. For me, I'll be honest, in my youth I did not feel powerful. I felt quite the opposite. I felt I was exiled. I felt that there was power. I could feel it. I could see other people be more powerful. I could see others be more free. You know, you might not think freedom is a power, but just being able to live somewhere without that place being destroyed or your identity being reduced or losing your sense of self, these are powers that we take for granted. I have truly wondered about what to do in this world since I was young. And like throughout the years of giving these talks, I've looked into power from so many different angles. I will tell you, go read Michel Foucault on power. But in 2023, I realized all the power that I am identifying as and using to manage my life. I pretty much discovered a greater power source than myself. I realized this world has a host. In other words, it was obvious from the beginning, I just hadn't connected the dots. The human free will has expectations on reality. Does that expectation happen? And why does it not happen? Why are we all not in a world that it's like heaven? The moment, like, why don't we have absolute, the moment we want something, it's there? You know, why is this world not like heaven? Why is our experience of this world not like heaven? Because intentionally we're put in a system to not experience how we are absolute. We are intentionally put in a conditional system to realize the absolute. This is why the only path outside of this simulation is to realize you don't own it. You think, okay, let me say it this way. A child is born in, like, let's say there's a family. The father is a family man, you know, goes to work, pays the bills. And a child is born in that family, and that child is being raised inside that house. Now the child has been given a room. The parents are merciful. The parents are like, all right, child, this is your room. You can use your free will to shape it. Okay? But if the child goes and tries to change the other furniture, tries to do something else, the parents are like, no, that's not in your jurisdiction. Okay? Do you see what I mean? The child is born in the house of its father, its parents. Okay? But the house doesn't belong to the child. So in the same way, I am born in a world. I have a certain body. They've given me my room in this world. But beyond this room, it is not in my jurisdiction. And I fathomed it. But the issue is, if your power goes beyond the human range, you'll be dehumanized. You can be powerful. Like, you know, I don't know, like, if, like, you know, these elite shadow, let's say billionaires or whatever, you know, and it's not like I have something against humans, because you're all here to be part of the canvas. We need, you know, everything that's in the world. For all of us, not for an individual. You know, that means the system is not designed for an individual. Like, even if you are, you're probably internally getting crushed or something. I don't know. To me, it's contrary to how we're all conditioned to think it's a physical calculation. I don't see it just as purely physical. I feel I don't know. I mean, I don't live as an object anymore. I don't know how others are doing it. Like, I am an object, but I'm not. My experience is not just objective. And I do notice stuff in my inner realms. Like, I can close my eyes and still see without light entering my eyes, as we all can. The biggest lie they told us: when you close your eyes, you can't see. Like, BS. When life reveals to you an intelligent mode of living and functioning as a presence, Islam and religion, monotheistic religions, I find, are not, they're designed, they're like, they are for a presence, they're not for a personality. I do not expect children born in 2026 for their personalities to identify with realities that they don't have access to. However, what moves all of this? That means, you know, all those people thinking they are alphas on this planet, you're all betas to the higher power. You're all betas to other dimensions. Because power individually is nothing. You think an individual could go hunt a mammoth? No, it was all humans that shared meaning. And they all built spears and they built a strategy and they collectively hunted a mammoth. They collectively solved the problems. The reason in front of your eyes you're in a world with 8 billion others is so that together we solve this. And of course, some problems, like inner realm problems, they're usually alone. Like, you know, I realized I desensitized to it when I was young. That means I was a shy, introverted kid and nobody came and snapped me out of my shyness and introversion and nobody came to check up, you know? And that led me to and I was too smart because I would act like I had no problems, even though I did. I would hide my problems as a man, you know, as a boy, really, you know, until years later I realized it's okay, you know, stop being such a, you know, I had fear of my identity, but I wasn't being my true identity. And sometimes life gives you turbulence to shake you and make you realize, you know, some things happen. These are boxes, guys. Imagine you're born and everybody's throwing boxes. Every idea you hear, every concept you hear. Somebody in the chat section asked a very nice question. Where are the stars? That's equivalent to saying, where is existence? Two answers. The known answer is it's in your experience. It's in your moment. That's one answer. The second answer is that existence is not existence. The stars are not stars. And you're not just this. This is a condition. This is the performance of a sector of manifestation. That means out of everywhere I could have been in this cosmos, I found myself on Earth. I found myself alongside humans. I found myself alongside a species that is very close to realizing the next chapters of human history require the patience to share meaning. Back in the day, you know what I'm doing, guys? It's so hilarious what I'm doing. I just realized what I'm doing. When I give these lectures, it's like somebody going and finding berries, bringing it back to the tribe. We all eat berries, and then we all talk about what we should do with these berries. So the question whether existence, whether experience and unknown experiential awareness is fundamental to the existential content, or the existential content is fundamental to the awareness, the answer is both, because these can be seen from different views. It's like we just took a chunk. It's like depends where you start on the sine wave. Okay, you start at the peak, You're going to think the next peak is the end. You're going to start at the trough. You're going to think the next trough is the end. Do you know? For me personally, you know, this is a good moment. Let me say it. I don't feel powerful. I feel observant. Or even if I have any power in this realm, maybe I will be someone else by the time I will have that power. But so far looking at my life, I would not see myself as the lion, or I would see myself as a griffin maybe, or like, I don't know, like a lion-faced griffin, or like, you know, I see myself as an eagle. Okay, my whole life has been shifting between elevations, noticing different realities, and being able to navigate through them. In other words, like, the lion in one dimension is king. The eagle is not the king of the land, but if the lion had wings, but the lion wishes it had wings. Can you imagine if lions had wings? That would be the scariest. Oh my God. We need to all be grateful that cats and vicious animals don't have wings. And birds that have wings, their beaks are not like the jaws of a... Can you imagine like a tiger bird? Like it has the head of a tiger, small head of a tiger or a cat? I mean, bats are kind of like this, but bats are like, we'll let Batman deal with that. Do you know what I mean? So to me, it's just so fascinating that birds don't have jaws. They have jaws. They don't have freaking, how do I explain it to you? They don't have like sharp teeth. Do you know what I mean? If they had like sharp teeth, can you imagine? You're like, yo, look at that sparrow on the bird. And then you're like, oh shit, you're running away from a sparrow about to like bite your shoulder. You're like, holy shit. You know, one of my tasks in this life, if I become very fortunate financially, God willing, and start building the prototype of the first advanced city on Earth, as a prototype pilot project for the rest of civilization, I have not felt powerful because I've had fear. But I had fear in different conditions until I had a fear that conquered all my fears. And people say you should fear God. Fearing God is the start of wisdom. But I think many human beings don't understand what it means to fear God. Fearing God doesn't mean the principal is watching. Fearing God means you realize that the greatest power in the realm has the greatest influence. In other words, I cannot be fully powerful in this world because I know there is a higher power than me. But the whole point of it is, just because God is way more powerful than its creation doesn't mean the creation cannot have a relationship, cannot have communication, cannot acknowledge it. You know, when I look at the world, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm acknowledging the power of this building to remain here. I'm acknowledging the power that charges my phone. You know, I'm acknowledging the power of my phone. I'm acknowledging power even in my body. I feel tired. I feel energetic. Do you know? But what is the purpose of power? And power, let me tell you something. There was this anime called Shingeki no Kyojin, Attack on Titan, this Japanese show. There was a character in it which I related to. This character had fear. This character was very attentive, very observant, you know, very smart, but had fear. You know, the character's name in the show is called Armin Artlet. And so this character Armin in the whole show, he's very smart. That means he sees deeper than the rest, you know, but not deeper than the rest, but he's very observant. And there is a scene where he realizes he has to sacrifice himself for like the survey corps or for their mission. Okay? And he looks at his childhood friend and he tells him the strategy, his genius strategy. I'm getting emotional saying this. And he looks at his friend for the first time smiling and he says, I don't remember the exact words, but he says something in the lines of like, I'm not scared anymore. I can feel courage flowing through me. That was his sentence. I can feel courage flowing through me. So if you guys want to know what my real view on power is, the true power is not from you. It will flow through you if you are destined. If it is your time. If it is your moment. Not all moments belong to everyone. You know, theft is not just in regards to, theft is not in regards to just physical stealing. You know, people steal moments from each other. They steal time. Somebody goes in a relationship, completely, engages that person, and then sees that person behind their eyes is in another room. They've already left and you just walk away. I am telling you that there is various types of power. Somebody could come beside me and hold a stick and be like, yo, buddy, I got more power than you. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, buddy, I got an elbow. I got more power than you. I got speed, man, I would identify with a speedster. I'm not a berserker. I'm not one of those juggernaut kind of presences. I'm more like access quickly, That's something my whole life feels like my soul from the moment I was born has been running everywhere. I just feel speed. In my inner realms, you don't understand. There's moments throughout the day where I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting watching TV and it feels like this super fast wind is passing through me. I don't know how to explain it to you. When I give these talks, I'm aligning with that wind. With that inner wind. People are like, what do you mean inner wind? Like inner realm rhythms, okay? Shifts. That means you think that your mind, you've been trained to analytically access your mind. You're under the impression that your intelligence has to go from A to B to C to D, from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. You know what I mean? Like human beings are conditioned to think that way. But when you live as a presence, you start experiencing A, B, C, D, E simultaneously. You begin to see the past, present, future. It was not an arrow. It was one dot where 3 arrows were coming from. Do you understand? Or better yet, it's like a circle even. Do you know that means if people are like, yo man, where were you before your birth? I would say I was at the end of my lifetime. This is my view. I believe it's a circle. I believe before I was born, I was the last breath of my future. Because we are in through the theological lens, we're in a system that has been designed before us, and the system admin is all knowing. These are all, to me, divine clues of the ontological nature of reality. Okay, we gotta acknowledge it. Humans, when you open your eyes, you see what you want life to be. You don't see life. All of you. If you're a working person, if you're physically moving, if you move in this realm, I know that something in your inner realms has relocated. You have relocated in your inner realms. I'll give you an example. Imagine I'm like talking to someone, okay? And recently I'm going into gaming, guys. I'm going to have a gaming channel soon. I'm setting it up, You're going to see how I defeat, how I solve pixelated problems, on the screen. They're like, no way, Mr. Within is a plat Zerath player this whole time. To me, everything can be seen as a condition. If it's seen as a condition, it's a game to me. Okay, and really me giving this talk to you right now, I'm playing a game. You think I'm not playing a game here? The game is though with my destiny, with my end of my life. That means you will be a completely different person. Guys, somebody in the chat section says that's right. There is proof the earth is not flat. Guys, I've had so many flat earthers join the streams. Let me tell you my answer. The earth is flat and round. We're all living in a 2D earth, yo. It's a flat 2D earth. We're living in a circle. It's flat and round. Everybody stop bothering my lectures. I don't know, guys. To me, in the Holy Quran in Islam, it says at the end of days, the sky will crack. There has been times where I thought it's a promised Neverland situation, you know, with this, you know, but in my view, like, you know, when people say flat Earth, I don't know how you mean it, but if you know, okay, anyways, I'm not gonna go into flat Earth now, but I'll dedicate an episode to it, you know. In the middle of the round earth and flat earth people like debating, I'm like, yo guys, it's a circle, it's a 2D or plane earth. People are like, get out of here, man. all right, to get serious, I don't know, guys. I'm living through it. Okay, let me speak through the present, actually. You know, I'm living through it right now. You know, I don't know what sort of power I will have in this life, but I do acknowledge that all human power is conditional and that there is an unconditional power. I do see this place as a system. The way I see its power, truth is not humanizable, but I will give you an example. It's like we're all employees and existence is a company. Imagine there's this company called existence. Okay, it has employees, managers, and it has an owner. Okay, simply said, you know. So we are employees. We're employees in the company of existence. Okay, and we wake up every day, and our job is to maintain our physical existence till the next day. Okay, or maintain ourselves. Now, some human beings are like, yo, man, you know, I need to go talk to a manager to get a promotion. I've been looping on earth for a while, you know, in existence for a while. I need to change my position. I need to go talk to someone who's higher up. Now, imagine the person goes and employees are like, yeah, man, we got to go tell the manager. So, you know, the employees go and talk to the manager. The managers are like, sorry guys, you know, the higher up said this way. And even one of the employees sees one of the managers, one of the mods of this existential system, sees one of the managers being like, sorry, you can never improve. You're actually going to be fired soon, you know? And so this employee who knows they've been doing proper work and knows the manager can't solve their problem or isn't acknowledging them properly, they have no choice. They must go and find the owner of the company. Okay, and the owner of the company should be smart to not ever let that even happen, because work hazards are a real thing. Like, I've heard some stories there, you know. I'm sure everyone has. But it's about the psychological safety of human beings as well. But we can't assume they're soft. Human beings are, you know, you're a being that can adjust. You can legit practice and become a savage, vicious beast beating the shit out of everyone, you know, or you can, in some sense, you know, like a UFC fighter or something, you know, and not out of everyone, but out of your enemies. But to me, I've realized anything you break, you have to answer for. That means you did not create other human beings. If you go and hurt other human beings, you need to answer for. Someone in the chat section said we're in the simulation. Yep. But it's very important how you understand the simulation. You're not in one simulation. Right now, you know, I was raised to be like, yeah, man, this is reality. And then I was like, wait a minute, my body's simulated here for some time. I'm logging in and out of existence every day. You know, my conscious waking state is simulated for some time. My dream states are simulated for some time. When I meet someone, based on the change of the condition, so the world is changing, therefore constantly causing resimulation. Okay, and just providing the context to being a simulation. So we are conditionally real. We are beings that are acknowledging this is reality because of a certain state of consciousness, but we don't understand our state of consciousness, which perceives the reality, is the simulation. Now, I just have this attitude that, sorry guys, just give me a second. And guys, just, I'm going to say this in the middle. If you've been listening to this lecture for, I don't know, for a while and it's engaged you, please go subscribe to the channel. And also share this video or share some of the videos. I'd appreciate it. Help me advance the channel that's trying to advance the civilization, you know. Okay, so back to it, guys. This is my view on power. I try to, there's been many situations where I have used my awareness and I have solved many problems in this lifetime. In my own personal life, I'm not talking about the talks. Somebody in the chat section asked, what's your political identity? I'll answer that. Let me just get this out. I want to say something about power, and then I'll respond to the chat section. I have a very interesting answer for you, to your question in the chat. Okay. Power is based on the ability in the room. This is how I would explain it. So if someone is in the room, in Vedic thought, in ancient yogic thought, they would say the mind that is stronger, that means if there's a bunch of people in a room and there's a mind that is stronger than the other minds, all the minds in that room will align to that mind. That means if you go to a room and you're adjusting and aligning to someone else, that person has a stronger mind. Now, when I say a stronger mind, it doesn't mean that person's smarter or knows more or anything. It just means in that presence, they have more power flowing through them than you. In emergencies, I've had ridiculous power, you know? Well, I remember I was in Iran as a kid. Sorry, not as a kid, maybe as a kid, I don't know. It was a while ago. I was in Iran. We had gone in our cottage in this place called Karaj, right? And we were in the third floor of our cottage, and it was like family gathering, bunch of kids, all the kids were playing, you know, and there was an earthquake, and the metal railings of the house, like everything in the house started to shake. All the metal, like sides of like the stairs started to shake and all that. My brother was so chill. He was like dancing in the middle of that. You know what I mean? But everybody freaked out, and immediately, you know, and my older cousin, my God, I'm not going to say his name, but I had an older cousin there. This idiot goes underneath the billiard table. I'm like, you dumbass. It wasn't a billiard table made of wood. It was one of those old school, like people who were raised in the 90s remember this. There were these like plastic tables that had billiard, hockey, like, you know, air hockey, all of this on it. Do you know what I mean? It was like this physical toy or something, you know? And I remember I just looked at that kid and I'm like, wow, that kid had courage, you know, but he didn't have intelligence. He had ability, but he didn't have the discretion to be like, yo, man, it doesn't make sense for me to go underneath this plastic table, you know, with like, there was weight on it. I don't know how to explain it. Anyways. Power there can be an argument made that the person has power for their okay, I could see a personal dimension of power. I want power because I want to change something about my reality. I want power because I can change the realities of others or my environment. And then there's a power from the environment that is beyond my power. I don't know. So guys, in the what's it called? Okay, so now to the question in the chat section. Somebody says, what's your political identity? And I'm so happy you haven't heard the other talks. You'll hear it from the beginning now. So I'm going to tell you guys, I'm Iranian Canadian. right now the country I was born in is going through the most effed up phase of its history, one of the most effed up phases of its history, you know. And I will tell you my political view, you know. I am a citizen of the world. I identify not with chunks of land, even though at this time in 2026 you have no choice, your identity is based on it. But I do not identify with chunks of land. I feel that in some sense we should identify with the human species. And the flag of all of us should be this like flag with the DNA sign on it. Okay, we need to unite the species. To me, it's hilarious. It's same human, but in different formats. Do you know? So I don't know how you would call this. My political identity is that I see all of you as being humans on Earth. Before you all have identities, you identify with your realities. Right? So it's a transnationalistic view. Now, if you ask me what political system would be in that, if you're asking about what politics, democracy for now is a very advanced form of, let's say, political governance, but democracy is the majority vote. If the majority is brainwashed, then in some sense, you know, the minority will never be able to correct the majority. So I can't tell you how I have a political identity in regards to what political system I identify with. Okay, but I am telling you, I'm a futurist, and in my inner realms I have seen the future. And today we vote for, like, what is politics? Have you ever looked at this? The nation is choosing an ego to make decisions for all of them. Okay, in the future we're not going to be choosing people. Everybody's going to be voting for policies. The whole point, if you have been listening to this lecture, if you're listening to this lecture, I'm telling you, okay, you will, the research component, you should have realized that the highest evolution of power is its invisibility. That means the most, like, if right now somebody wants to make a claim who are the most powerful people on the planet, they are the ones that have invisible power. Now, what does invisible power mean? Okay, that means forget you. You're too busy identifying with you're too busy trying to have a political identity, not realizing your personal identity has been conditioned to choose out of the options. Do you know what I mean? That means they're putting like 4 options in front of you, but why those 4? Why? Because everybody's been doing it. For example, I don't want to get too much into politics because it's impure. And eventually you can't ignore your physicalism, so you take a side. But in my experience, I'm like, okay, bro, my body was born in Iran, my mind was raised in Canada, you know, but my soul is in a simulation, yo. As a Muslim, you know, so many people don't realize you are introduced to Islam through the media, do you know? And I'm not saying there aren't effed up humans, you know. It's something that blew my mind when I really understood religion, right, was that, yo, everything is God's creation, yet humans act like they have authority over it. This is why I've been beginning all my lectures with one, in the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful. Why? I realized before the world existed, there was an unconditional, original moment of being. Pretty much, the world is simulated within the experience of an absolute being. Okay, and so you asking me, what do I identify? Yeah, bro, I identify like in the same way the natives put paint on their face. You know, massive groups of people have put paint on land, and they're like, yo, bro, I'm from this painted part of the part of Earth. You know, and of course, I do understand that the simulation has to be kept because right now our communication is being done through that. But I guess my political identity is not from this year. I have a political identity that's probably, I don't know, give it like, I felt I was born 400 years too soon, so give it 400 years. It's all about management. You know, you don't understand. It's all about management. Everybody's managing their realities, but they do it at the cost of others, and that's what kind of, you know, is the problem. To me, 8 billion, so 300,000 years ago, there's been 117 billion humans considered to have existed. There's 8.1 billion human beings alive. They've grouped up. You know, they don't have so think of it this way. You have an individual identity, but then the neighborhood you're living in is like your bigger identity. Then the nation you're living in is your identity. Then it's your planet. So you see, we're living at a time in 2026 that being a patriot of a nation is more real than being a member of the human species. The fact that human beings have been destroying humans over the ideas that come and go in their heads is hilarious. That means the dude's like, yo man, what if, you know, they just have a thought pass by and they were judged for that. I am part of the humans that realize we have a mind that shows us better possibilities. If we can see better possibilities, why are we looping in the old ones? In the inefficient ones. So to me, I encourage anybody, the person who asked me that question, go listen to the lecture. I'm gonna put it on the main chat, on the main video of the channel, but go listen to the lecture, the United Species Council and United Species Day. Go listen to that lecture of mine, and you'll see the depth of my political views. You know. But in actuality, it's humans, guys. What do you want me to say? You know, you think like, you know, millions of people vote on a individual, and you think that individual is not prone to getting into influence. That individual could get influence. Like, who knows? You know, Donald Trump could be like doom scrolling on his phone, like, you know, when he's like waiting or something. Do you know what I mean? He could be checking social media. You know, who knows? Maybe like there's a world leader that hears my lecture or something. I don't know. You know, you don't know that what you think. See, it's very easy. It's sales. Politics is sales. But it's important because one salesman is way better than the other salesman. Somebody in the chat section says something interesting. God will guide those like us to teach and bring others to that reality. Humanity is evolving in real time. See, yes, but this was one of the hardest challenges for me in trying to process. Yo, man, I know who Marx is, bro. It's not like that dude isn't new. I am familiar with Marxism, but I am not. How do I tell you? The communism failed. What Marx didn't understand, okay, what Karl Marx didn't understand was that human nature was not evolved for the ideology he brought. But I am not again. How do I explain it to you? I don't give a F. I don't give a shit. Like, how do I explain it to you? I don't care about all the ideological. How do I say it? You're humans. I care for the human species. Okay, I don't care. If the ideological system advances the human species, yay. If the ideological system is looping humans in an effed up civilization, and when you look at politics, the only problem, you know, let me tell you something I've done. I went to, this was in Iran a while ago, but I spoke to, it's not like I spoke to, it was like, I think my father was going to get a permit for like, anyways, I spoke to someone, okay, the mayor of a town, but I was there in the room and I just asked the question. Actually, my twin brother asked the question, but his answer, I heard the answer, okay? My ears were in the room. And my brother asked, what do you think is missing from society? And the guy said, honesty. That means you're asking me what political system is good in a world where human beings have more of an incentive to go to choose what's familiar to them than to actually advance and be patient and see things from different views. You know, it doesn't matter. You can get into politics. This is why it's, to me, politics is like, okay, man, I could go try to understand this, but how am I going to fix human nature? This is why AI being a politician is going to be a better politician than humans, because humans are, I'm sorry to say, it's like it depends on which lightsaber you hold. You know, it's based on your incentive. That means if you're physically scared of your existence, you're going to psychologically adjust to what's scaring you. Do you understand? So to me, politics is weird, and it's also stupid. Let me tell you why. You know, for me, okay, they talk about two types of control. Okay, they talk about a control that is overt. So for example, people seeing Iran, okay, Iran, you're seeing a nation that is controlling its people overtly. It's like, yo, shut up. If you say anything, I'm gonna kill you. That's how the nation, those are the in quotations religious guys. Neither religious, neither politicians, just, I don't know, you know, jinn kind accidentally made it into politics, in human politics. You know? It's all about the restoration of the original values. If theologically Adam and Eve listened to a simulated serpent rather than remembering the original command that their system admin had given them. Yeah, guys, you know, I am telling you. You're listening to someone who believes that the system admin is outside of the world room. Okay, the only ideological system that aligns to this is Islam. You know why? Because truth can't be a condition. You can't make what's outside of the simulation equal to what's inside the simulation. If you do, you are a lost soul. Like, that's the logic. But beyond that logic, God's will is superior to human logic. Okay, and when I tell you God, I am telling you an system admin. Do you understand? That means the mods are created beings. The users like us are created beings. The admin is an uncreated being. You know, in Islam it says God cannot fall asleep, does not get tired. In other words, human condition, which is what our thinking is limited to, it doesn't apply to it. That means it's like me saying cosmos and then being like, the word cosmos is the whole cosmos, guys. And you guys being like, what? No. It's pointing to an unconditional state of being. All right, guys, be calm. I mean, I'm listening to your chat section. I don't know what you mean by nominalist exactly. I'm looking it up. Guys, if you don't have patience, don't communicate with people. Just remember that. If you really are not a patient person and you don't care about the other person's reality, like you don't want to actually see another soul different than you, then you shouldn't engage. Okay? Because if you're going to be in your own world and ask a question from me that's only real in your own world, I don't have your world, bro. Like, what do you want me to say? And be respectful. Do I deserve rudeness? Have I been rude to you guys? Okay, it says a nominalist is a philosopher who believes that universal concepts like redness or humanity and abstract entities like exist only as name or words, not as real things. No, I'm not okay, first of all, bro, be less toxic. Rumor is you're a nominalist. Like, bro, I don't have that many views. You know, I'd be impressed if there's rumors on it. You know, but I will say this, that no, you think that when I use the word apple, I don't believe it represents an actual apple. I don't believe the word is real in the sense that the world is only real as a subject. It says nominalism opposes realism, which holds that universals have real existence by reducing general terms to labels for collections of individuals or shared properties, aiming to simplify metaphysics by avoiding questions about abstract entities. I'm not avoiding the abstract entities, bro. I am telling you it's an unknown world. My whole thing is that I'm telling you we're in an unknown world. There emerged an unknown self. This unknown self found a way to know itself. It became a known self. It simulated itself as a known self. And now that known simulated idea thinks it's living in a known simulated world, but it's simulated. Do you know what I mean? That means you have access to the outer realms. You have access to the inner realms. But that which has access is neither based on the outer or inner realms.
All right, guys, there's a lot of activity in the chat section. This is interesting. Somebody says, I think you may be right when you say it's just going to loop. When you explain it that way, to be honest, like we were told over and over and over throughout time, and we keep making the same choice rather than elevate. Okay, so to the person who's trying to tell me as an idealist, reductionist, whatever that is, okay, I will tell you, I don't need to pick one, bro. Your mind needs to see me as one. You need to see me as one. Because you think that as placing me... It's like, yeah, bro, what's your favorite color? Choose one. Choose one. Which color do you want to, like, imagine you're asking me legit, like, yo, man, imagine you wanted to live in a world where the sky was blue, the sky was red, the sky was purple. You know, it's like, which one are you, bro? Which sky do you see? Buddy, it's a changing state. You think you're a fixed idea? You have been changing from the beginning of your life. Today, you can choose to assign. In this moment, I could tell you I am whatever, but my eyes acknowledge a world that is more like an unknown verb rather than a known noun. Everybody's been conditioned to see it as a known noun. You've been conditioned to even force me to be a known noun in front of you right now. And I am telling you, that's the whole point. You're listening to an unknown being in an unknown world that is telling you the known being, the known self, and the known world are not it. Are not. They're just a room. The question should be, what is in the human room? And the answer is not for us. It's not. It's Mysterian. I guess maybe I can ask AI, but okay, you tell me what category I fall into. In the outer realms, the whole purpose of life to me, the greatest argument, everything, is advanced humanity, advanced civilization. That's it. There's nothing greater to do, nothing cooler in the outer realms. Nothing I see, in the outer realms for the human mind. But in regards to the inner realms, what is the greatest thing? So you're listening to that being that is seeking the most advanced state in the outer realms and the most advanced state in the inner realms. You tell me which one I am. I'm looking for the most advanced power of the world. Okay, yo guys, I'm not used to this kind of like chat engagement. So we have Lena, who's getting offended I'm not responding to the message. So, well, kinda, it's really frustrating when this app is non-stop fascist live streams and I find someone who actually promotes internationalism and features them, and it turns out he's just an Islamo-fascist. Guys, did I tell you that you all have to be Muslims? And for a second, you answer this. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, did the world exist before them, or did they exist before the world? You think I treat the world as not God's creation? The Holy Quran, all the books, everything is God's creation. And God is unconditional. And you answer me this. What is the conditional context to your reality? And if you guys judge me that easily, if you just joined my chat and you're like calling me fascist and all that, as someone who's telling you, my God, bro.
We water the plants as much. Guys, don't worry. You can write as much as you want. If you're gonna be rude, you're not gonna exist I'm not gonna put attention into someone who doesn't want to have a conversation. The moment you show disrespect, that means you're out of the intellectual game.
I'm sorry, guys. Let me tell you this, okay? I don't know you guys. You don't know me. Okay, you don't know behind my eyes what the exact value system I have to reality. I don't know the exact value system you have. Communication is just this middle ground in the middle where I show some forms to you, you show some forms to me, and either these forms can lead to a greater awareness of the whole forms or it cannot. Do you know? Because it's all about what you're looking at. If we don't have shared meaning, then, you know, feel free to use the chat section to speak to yourself. I don't want to attack, like, see, you guys, when you see, this is the thing. When you talk about me, that's, you make it personal. When you talk about the idea, that's not personal. And I haven't said any personal comments to the viewers in the chat yet. Do you know what I mean? So don't make it personal, guys. I enjoy, you know. Okay, back to it, guys. See me how you like. There's 8.1 billion humans. Yes, I have, bro. I quoted it earlier. Oh my God, man. Okay, maybe I'm just new and I'm not used to this one chat activity. Maybe I'm caring too much and people have chats with like millions of people. Maybe that's how you... Okay, guys, I'll answer. Write your questions in caps and make it about the content. Don't make it about me. Make it about the stuff I'm talking about. Don't make it about me. Because let me teach you something here. And I shouldn't say teach, but let me explain something to you here. Eleanor Roosevelt had this quote. She said, small minds speak about people. Average minds speak about ideas. Speak about events. Superior minds speak about ideas. So if you guys in the chat section or any chat section of any content creator you guys go on after this, if you comment on the person, you are a small mind. If you comment on what's happening, you're a bigger mind than you're an average mind. If you come and confront and challenge the ideas, okay, not challenge my identity, challenge the ideas. I know, bro, I have a twin brother, and my twin brother has legit trained me to be able like I am very patient, you know, like there's nothing the viewers can do that my twin brother hasn't done the worse version. So no, bro, it's not. Islam is not an domination ideology. Domination is in human nature. Islam is a book. That book, if there was no one to read it, it's a book. If there's someone to read it, then they align their meaning to it. So you must ask the question before blaming other systems, because you don't know. Like, you know, I don't say it, you know. Yes, I am Muslim, but I don't go up to Christians and be like, yo, you know, Christianity is a religion of pedophiles and rapists and, like, you know, Inquisition, and they just kill people if they disagree with them. Buddy, let me explain something to you. The more you go back in history, everybody was fucked up. Everybody was a slaver. Everybody was killing each other on sight. Everybody was a psychopath. Everybody was demented. Okay, and now we've reached a time of civility. So if you are treating Islam in regards to an identity of back then, you don't have the identity of back then. Do you understand? So I'm telling you, to me, no, I do not see Christ as being a sick person. I do not see Christ as, in some sense, how do I say it, being like effed up, because there's effed up humans that identify with Christ. You have Muslims. Okay, you tell me this. In religion, it says God, everything is the creation of God. Okay? Guys, don't say wrong without explaining. If you can't explain why I'm wrong, then I'm sorry, dude. You're becoming somebody who's very annoying. Okay? Explain. Talk about the ideas. Don't use in the arguments anything personal. That's noob. That's noob level. And I'm not here to agree with you guys. So try as hard as you want to make me agree with you. I have my own eyes. I walk in my own world. You know, and I've been trying from the beginning, you know, as we all should, to try to step out of that world and see what other views there are. And if you go and look at the evolution, you think like from the beginning I was Muslim, I was called towards that. I understood something that perhaps you will one day, that you did not create any of this. Okay, there we go. So somebody is saying you're putting the blame of bad actors on all actors. Exactly. You got my point. So why are you doing the same? You think bad actors, in some sense, make the religion wrong? The religion is words in a book. It's the humans that act. And God has given them free will to act. Okay? Even if the book, even if, let's say, a book says, people don't understand this. Let's say a holy book says, be violent when you're attacked. Okay? A book says that. Be violent when you're attacked. Be violent in this way when you're attacked. Okay? Okay, yo. But at the same time, that same book is saying everything is the creation of God. God is in control. And killing is the worst sin. Islam only has a right in regards to self-defense. It doesn't have a right in regards to absolute conquering everything. Because that's what Shaitan would do. You're telling, like, do you understand? Just because humans say they are Muslim doesn't mean they are human. You're not seeing humans. You think a human goes and massacres people for religion? That's not a human. There's more than humans here. All right, guys, I've given you two enough attention. Honestly, you guys, you're younger than me, I feel. Anyways. My view is this. There's a system admin, there's a world host, there's an unconditional power. We cannot make the conditional equal to the unconditional. It doesn't make sense. If there's an unconditional presence to how all conditional realities have arisen, the conditions are simulated and they will return to their original condition. So Islam is saying everything started from an unconditional original state. You're experiencing a conditional simulation. In the book, in the Quran, it says this world is delusional enjoyment. That's a verse. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. That's a verse. Somebody in the chat section says, don't mythologize reality. Don't think that I'm mythologizing reality, bro. Maybe you don't think that instead of telling me I'm doing that. Man, people. They forget to listen to their hearts and their minds are freaking dying to be true. All right, you guys have distracted me from the lecture enough. I'm going to go back to it. So guys, why power? If we look at the structure of power, if I was to put this in the designer's table, guys, I'll look at the chat in probably like 10 minutes. And if you really want to have deep conversations with me and you really care to have a conversation, write me emails. Then I can properly give you a response. So power. What is power? Power is access to reality. Ooh. Man, engaging with the chat brings me out of the rhythm. All right. Oh, there we go. This is the song.
I had a very intense feeling when I came to give this lecture. There's something I need to get out and say. I feel it. I feel the emotion of it. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Eyes were opened. We entered reality. We stabilized an identity. And that identity is trying to solve the problems of its life. Power is what we need. It's like the effort of our life, right? And power without purpose, the AI was saying it leads to tyranny. In other words, what is the grand purpose? If power without purpose leads to tyranny, what is the purpose? So the species is missing its purpose. And if someone who, let's say, wants power, but doesn't have power, maybe you don't have the correct purpose. Maybe by having the correct purpose, the power activates. That means, for example, imagine, someone dishonors your family member, then just by the code and the logic of your brain, the power arises to go defend them. So power is based on purpose, but what is purpose based on? Purpose is based on the furthest reaches of your awareness. So technically, why power? We need power to function, but the power it's based on identity. Power is based on identity. If I am, let's say, in a powerful, around powerful people, I identify as powerful. If I have powerful allies, I identify as powerful. If I am capable in any domain, like I have the power to lift a coffee cup in there, but I don't have a power to redesign the educational system, and shift it from students and teachers to just an exploration ranking system that eternally grows. An explorer ranking system. And who knows, I feel in the same way that if we believe in destiny, there's moments that maybe we're destined to be powerful, and there's moments where maybe destined to be in the opposite. And if you don't experience the opposite of power, how can you maintain? How can you control that power? That means, should power be earned, or should it just be given? So, let's say I want to have the power to finish this talk. I want to have the power, to ignore the ignorance of the chat section of who I really am. It's purpose. Purpose gives you power. Purpose comes from awareness. Awareness is how closely you've looked at life. There's an epistemological approach. There's how we're knowing life, and then there's what it actually is. What it actually is, in my experience, is one one out of 117 billion humans that have ever existed, considering the 300,000 year range. In my experience. So I'm born in a world, I have an identity,
I want realities that I can't access with that identity, so I require power, but I don't have the view of the identity that will be able to manage that power. If I was to think about the management of power as someone who believes in a higher order processes of this realm, not only I believe in God, I believe there's 7 planes above us, you know. I believe that as you go closer, how do I explain it to you? Life, think of it as if you're playing 3 games: game of the body, game of the mind, game of the soul. You're living 3 lives in one life, you know. The life of the body is more role oriented. The life of the mind is also semi-role oriented, but a bit more. The life of the soul is the realization that the power, what powers everything, is not it. So if I want to have a great purpose, to then be able to have power, and that purpose is limited to my awareness of the world room, but when I come to be aware, it's dependent on my furthest reaches of my awareness, and if I wanted to say that authority of the room, that means I'm born in this world. I have an identity. Let's say I find a purpose, and I'm, you know, let's say I want power, but the monotheistic approach, the Islamic approach, is simply that truth is outside of the world room. In other words, the true power is not in the world, but it powers all worlds. So if I want to use my power levels to get something done, then I use the nafs, the ego. If I want to, in some sense, be powerful in the world that I did, oh my God, you can be powerful in the domains you create, you know? You can be powerful in the presence of your own creation, you know, but you don't have power over the whole creation, right? And when we realize the authority of the power to the whole creation is beyond the world room, and it's intelligent, but it's not human. It's not limited to human. It's like, that means truth can be dehumanized. And all these humans trying to have views, like people in the chat section, what's your view, bro? What's your view, bro? It's like, have you even looked at what's going on? Have you ever wondered that in some sense why you have certain access to consciousness and why you can move your hands? You can't move like your inner organs or change the rhythms of your blood like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You know what I mean? The direction of your blood. Like, so on some level, it's a positional play. We're put into a position, and we are not that powerful to define, we can redefine the position. We have the power to redefine the position to ourselves. We have the power to realign our inner realms. We don't have the power to align the outer realms if the outer realms is not just based on our values. You know? There's a very interesting story. There was this, back in the day, there was this like brothel, or, you know, this place where, you know, women of the night lived, you know, and there was a, what do you call it? There was a church beside this brothel. I've said this story before in other talks. There's a church beside this brothel. There's a priest in that church. Okay, and on the second floor of the church beside this brothel, it was like a small village or something, you know, there was on the second floor there was a window. The window of the church was right beside the second floor window of the brothel, and the priest would wake up every day, go and act holy, listen to confession, be very, like, you know, act divine, but at the end of the night he would come back home and he would just, like, you know, stare at this prostitute in the other building. Okay, and there was this prostitute in the other building that she would go at night. She would have a filthy day, and then at night she would go in front of the mirror and she would just have her hands in prayer, and she would just pray to God. You know, she would just pray to God. God save me, God help me. Why this God? God, you know, just praying for God. You know, that means she went and had this weird outer realms and then came back up and just was like, oh, system admin of this world, help me. You know, now the priest went and didn't have a weird outer realms. He was like, people were like, yo, this is the priest, give him status, you know, of course, show him respect, you know, all of this. But the priest at the end would come and just stare at this prostitute who would pray, you know. And so long story short, something happens. They both go to the pearly gates and, you know, the priest is like, yo, man, I'm going to get in. And the voice says, no, you can't go in. And the prostitute goes in first. And the priest gets angry and says, why? She lived a filthy life in the outer realms. She was wrong. She was impure, do you know? And why? Why did she go to heaven? Do you know? And I was like your representative on earth, you know, promoting the good word and all of this. And then the voice at the pearly gate says, she lived on earth in hell, but at the end, she came and had her attention on heaven. In other words, she went through a messed up day, but her whole attention was on the next, on the system admin, on the higher power, on the most advanced power. Do you know? Yet the priest lived a very divine, worldly life, but in the next world. It was as if you acted like you cared for the next world, but your attention was stuck on this one. And there are those who they are acting like they're in this world, but their attention is on the next one. That's the secret. If you want to live, if you think of it this way, if you want to stabilize your past, you need to think from the present. If you want to stabilize your present, you need to think from the future. Anyways, folks, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for listening. And no hard feelings, guys. You know, of course, there's 8.1 billion people, 8.1 billion different DNAs currently. That means all of us have a different DNA. All of us have a different viewpoint and access to reality. The point of it is not, yo, man, I'm right, dude, so everybody's going to be this, or, oh, those guys are right, everybody has to be that. No. We're not like, you know, that person who said, you know, you said the word Islamofascist to the wrong person, because I have said so many times, I've used this poetic imagery, that existence, the garden of existence, is not designed so that all the flowers are dandelions or all the flowers are roses. Nature is designed for different types of intelligence to activate in the same sector. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. Even though, you know, some of the comments were annoying and they didn't have the intention to, you know, they were kind of just antithesis, not synthesis, not with the consciousness of synthesis in mind. But that's the whole point. I have a view. You guys, the world has a different view. These views engage, and the thesis and the first there's the thesis, then the antithesis, and then the synthesis. The synthesis is more important than my belief and your belief. It's how the whole system advances. So you're listening to someone who, yes, I believe in a higher power. I believe there's a system admin beyond this world, but I believe that the users can't act like the system admin. Therefore, in some sense, we can't control souls here. And if souls are being controlled, there's a consequence. Like, I'm not in charge of the divine surveillance state, but I know that we're in a simulated testing zone. There's mods. Don't go to the mods. Go directly to the system admin. The whole point of life is that it's an energetic event. That energy is power. So you need to seek and find the original power, the original earth, the original self. Forget about good and evil, you know, original and simulated. Go towards the original. And what holy books are, what Islam is, and I believe what all these religions are, okay, they are in some sense saying that, yo, we received contact from outside of the kingdom walls. We received contact outside of the world room, and they are geometric. Read these books as a designer, not as a human that has an allegiance to an emotionally looped cultural program. And so, whoever you are, go forth. And just to say why power, my approach is, rather than wanting to become the most powerful person and control things, I identify with the power source. In other words, I did not create this world. If the system admin wants me to have power, I will. And if not, then, I was in the background here talking. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the most merciful and the most advanced. And never be convinced by how do I explain it to you? Everybody is starting off in their own inner realms, okay? And they're projecting in the outer realms. Nobody has access to each other's inner realms unless communicated, okay? And be human before you want to be, anything else, any other idea. That's my whole point. In the outer realms, the most important value is the biological, natural human being. Even though we're living in an unnatural time, that means our body is like this outdated, ancient biological technology, and we're living in an unnatural, modernized society that is not built for that technology. So it's very natural for human beings to not just feel incomplete, because this room is an incomplete room. But guys, I can choose to live for myself in a world. I can choose to advance myself in the world, or I could choose to advance the world and therefore live among all the advanced selves. My agenda as Mr. Within is advance civilization till the last breath. And then we smile because we couldn't do anymore. That was our effort. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, the most advanced. Have a great day, guys. Thank you for listening.